Hello, Ben here from Supercoach Insider, bringing you my team into round 11. Thought I'd get in nice and early, try and beat Chris to the punch, and also got a very busy week, so I thought, look, I might as well just try and get out there, get this off my chest. Speaking of chest, I'll probably sound a little bit more chesty today, which we'll get into as well. But before we move on, SC Insider 100, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok, or the audio platforms as well, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, you name it. Support us, like us, get amongst it, put us as a favorite, give us a shout out. Speaking of shout-outs, going the hair of the dog, I think is the term I'm trying to think of. I may have had a big night last night. World Whiskey Day yesterday, and they had, that's, by the way, I scored 25-28, so not a pretty good week. I moved up to 5,900 overall. Yeah, look, pretty happy with that, how that's going along. Yeah, World Whiskey Day yesterday went out. So Starwood had a stout cask where there was only one place in Queensland to have it, and you could go, and if you bought one, you got a free beer. So I was like, perfect value. I mean, if it's free, it's me. And so I went down there, and it was $22 for a nip of Starwood Stout Cask, which I was kind of hoping not to like it because I had my name in a ballot, and if I was like, okay, it might be good to try it. So had some drinks, went there, watched a little bit of footy, the whole North conundrum, which was how to say you're tanking without saying you're tanking. I just can't believe that they would do that. But yeah, so the whiskey was amazing. So keep an eye out for that one as well. I was hoping not to like it, but hey, it was absolutely sensational. And because it was good value, $22 for a shot and a beer, I went twice. And that's pretty much where the mess started to happen. And I didn't even realize what was happening with my team. And speaking of my team, let's go and check it out. So the week just gone, I obviously had so Steele in there from last week. I brought in Goulden this week more because I was a little bit worried he might go off. Goulden got tagged, obviously, so that's that scenario. I still think he was good value at that point. He's gone up to like 600k. They do have a fairly soft draw as well. First buy, so that kind of fit in with my structure because I have a few people playing already, so I wasn't too stressed about that. Yeah, so look, I think he's still a good option to have. I thought about sort of passing on him and then trying to go a Walsh or someone else, but then the concern I had was maybe I didn't have enough money. So the other option I was looking at was maybe getting in a Wines. I know a few people, so shout out to Fab who did that. Who did do the Wines one? So the Community League, I think I brought in, so in the Community League, I think Wines came in as well as someone else, which I think was a very good move there. But look, like anything, you kind of have these scenarios where like I should have got probably Weddle last week. Didn't work out. Atkins as well. I did say 60 at 1 week, 100 the next. So hopefully Weller's back in to stomp Atkins out of any contention of doing well. That'd be nice, just because I don't have him. So yeah, let me know if you have Atkins. Definitely well done. Kudos to you. The other one, yeah, so Weddle just huge. Kicked a couple goals, 28 touches or something, I think. Just absolutely went huge. So for those who had him, he's just making money. I thought about bringing him in the week just gone. Lucky I didn't. So Sharp I wasn't really keen on. I thought about going it because 47,000 people were. I just didn't like him so much. He got subbed on 40 odds. So I was like, okay, I'm happy with that one so far. Didn't go there. I also considered Drury just to free up max cash because I didn't want to spend $200,000. And I even thought about bringing in Chesser because I was like, oh, well, he's back and they're so depleted that maybe he'll actually do pretty well. I didn't even know what Chesser got in there, but I know he was doing horrible for a long, long, long time, old Chess. So, like, I actually kind of got a little bit lucky, I think, in one aspect, but also not lucky in another. So I'll explain that. So Chesser, 21, yeah, Supercoach, he sucks. Don't get him. If you already got him and you waited that long and you're like, yay, he's back, I've already got him, obviously upset you are. Very disappointed. So here's the issue I had is that because we were out and having the time of my, like a friend of mine from work, so out having the time of our life, going to these whiskey bars, I think I had... what else did I have? I had the Redbreast 15-year-old. I had a nip of that. That was really nice as well. Can't say I'll go to too many whiskey bars though because it's so expensive. It's like 5 times what you would pay at home for a shot. Now I know you have one shot and you don't have to buy a bottle, but I'd rather just buy a bottle. Like, it's cheaper. Have some mates come over, share the whiskey around that way. I was like, this is like 5 times the price of what I've got at home as far as per nip. So I was like, ridiculous. But look, I do like the swag, I guess, of people going there, and it is nice to try different stuff. But so what happened was is that we were having whiskey at this bar. I was trying to keep an eye on, like, so Baker went well enough where I was going to take his score, and then I was going to move Humphrey into the forward line and take Simpson off field. That's what I was wanting to do. But then I'm kind of also lucky in the fact that part of me was like, oh, Humphrey's so expensive. I hadn't really thought about him, but then Chris and Swiss are talking about it, and I was like, okay, so if he plays well, their draw's pretty good. I think once they got through Brisbane and someone else, I was like, maybe it's cover for the buys. He's already, unlike Clark, which burnt me on the expensive rookie train. It's like he's already got a good price, like a good score in his cycle, so it could be a way to make 100K. I was like, I need to make money because I've missed a few others. And yeah, so I was actually toying up getting off Humphrey and going somewhere else, and one of those other options. And I think the fact that I was drinking probably saved me. Now, obviously, I got the Simpson 20 and Humphreys on bench. That's not ideal. That's 81 points. However, silver lining, I actually have Humphrey. So, I mean, he went up. He's now 285,000. He went up 72,000 this week alone with a break even of negative 54. Like, if he goes 64, he's going up another 50K. So that's 120,000 over 2 weeks. That's a good decision. Would I have liked him on field? Yes, I would have, but I can't be that upset because at least I got him in. And the one who was selling me on it, Chris, with all of his big talk, didn't go there. So that'll be a little disclosure for Chris's team reveal this week and on the podcast as well. I even gave Swizz a few little rib ticklers about Holmes. I thought you said Holmes was going 105 to 110 average. I said he's got 110 off 2 games in the last 2 weeks. I was like, that's not a good average, Swizz. I was like, what's your excuse this week? Was he tagging someone else again like Taranto? Yeah, so I should probably ease up on Swizz because he is a good man. And yeah, let me know on that one. So I think Chris has been dodging a few bullets there. Although dodging bullets, Oliver, good old Clary apparently has hamstring damage, hamstring issue, did his hamstring. Some journalist is going on saying he could be out for like up to a month. So I'm really waiting to see what's happening there as far as what I'm going to do with my team specifically. So up to a month apparently. Now, I don't know. Like, we'll see because he played out the game. I didn't even know that was a thing until it sort of came out today. Melbourne's waiting on the scans to kind of then come up with anything official. So I was like, okay, well, if they're waiting on scans, then how can someone say he's been up there waiting, will be out for up to a month? So knowing our luck, it'll be bad news. I think Chris brought him in last week, and so that'll be bad. Instead of Mills, it's like, oh, yes, I dodged the Mills train, and then, 1 week later. So let me know if you've only just brought in Clary. I think one of the guys in my chat league literally brought him in this week. Very, very disappointing on that front. So, yeah, for me this week going, though, if Clary's out, you can't, how do you hold him? Like, I know buys you're playing best 18 and you can, but we already have so many donuts on the bench anyway, or I do. So I don't know how you're going to be covering him for at least those first few rounds. If he comes after his buy for the tough one, round 14 or whatever it might be, 12, 13, 14, if he plays that round, maybe it's not so bad. Because realistically, it's only, 2 rounds in. One of them they would have had to buy anyway. Gold Coast Geelong, you're not really going to be missing many people through that buy anyway as well. And the first one, I don't have too many buy players either. So it might not be the worst scenario to hold him because you're not really going to be out of pocket, I guess, for the Suns Geelong buy round. So no harm, no foul. Outside of the points that you would get, you might pick up, you hope a rookie does well. If they don't, you're probably losing 50, 60 points a week. Maybe, unless you have if you have extra rookies and one of them fires for an 80 or 90, then yeah, you might not lose as much. So there is a consideration to keep. If you've got good depth over those buys, you might be able to just run more rookies and take an L that way. So the only issue is that, unless you're going to bring him back in, if you've got trades up your sleeve, unlike me, if you've got trades up your sleeve, then yeah, maybe you would just move him on and then bring him back. So, but the issue is he'll be 660k. So how do you move? How do you bring someone back in at 660k when they've just come off a hamstring? That's a lot of money. That's a big risk. So for me at the moment, what I am looking at is I can go and get in, say, like a Lockie Neal, who they have a real soft draw coming up. After their bye, they play a lot more home games. He's someone I'm looking at targeting anyway. But they also have the first bye, break even of 85, so hopefully he wouldn't tail up Adelaide this week. You might be able to wait a week and he'll go up a little bit of cash, but then during the buys you have more trades anyway. Bring in people that are actually playing that week, so any rookies that might be playing, and then also use your extra trade to get him in that way. So that's the other consideration I'm sort of looking at the moment. Ollie Wines is another one now. He was on my radar to bring in last week. Went to 79% time on ground, had the most CBAs for Port Adelaide, and that's a big sign. He only went 85 or something, so it was like, okay, not quite there yet. I know a few that just pulled the trigger, so he's at a good price now. I think he still went from 420k to maybe 444, 443k now, so he's still fairly cheap. He's someone that you could definitely look at to bring in if you need a cheaper option. Speaking of cheaper options, I'm kind of glad I held Ridley out for that 122. I'll pretend he got a 61 last week and 60, this week. So, actually, who did I play? I played Seamus, I think, in the team last week, so it worked out all right. Break even now of 97. They play West Coast next week, so that's also a nice little possible buffer there. And North Melbourne the week after that. So there could definitely be some room here. So this is what I'm looking at with. They have a lot of injuries at Essendon, so you've still got Parrish still a few weeks away, etc. So I'm actually even looking at Baldwin because of those real soft 2 games coming up. He's someone that might actually be able to make a little bit of cash as well, give you a little bit of buy coverage and hope that he just keeps on. So that's something I am considering. Simpson stunk up on the 20, so his break-even's not that bad though. It's 59 break-even. So you can afford to wait a week on him. Possibly he might get dropped, like Chin Cotter, got dropped. Painful. Didn't play VFL either, was held out as an emergency, so it's kind of hard he can't really even play for form to get back in, unless only bright side is, I guess, is that, Carlton lost and their defense was horrible, so hey, maybe put him back in your side, or Cowan. I don't have Cowan, but maybe bring them back in. I'm hoping Young for Richmond might come back soon enough. He was off their injury list, I believe, still not there. Sin, I want you to play, mate. Sin, come on. Can he be like Holman from last year and just come in finally and just start banging out some scores? That'd be nice. So I guess we will wait and see. Mitchell's definitely made a little bit more cash now, which is good as well for those that held him. And now he's reset his break even. So he did have that real poor score. That's now out of his cycle when he got subbed. And that's been the common theme though. Was it Williams for Port Adelaide subbed out, don't bring him in, plays. Phillips subbed, played, made a bit of cash, and then obviously he's out of their team. But Williams was the same. And then you've got, Mitchell subbed, and then it looks like it's all dire, like as in the worst thing in the world. So I'm hoping Simpson could be the same thing. Like, hey, he was subbed out. Next minute, he comes back in with vengeance, scores some 80s and 90s or whatever. Regenerate your cash, mate, and then kick on. So, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. He was definitely not my favourite person in the world. Outside of that, I think my forward line is still kicking on really strong. I'm really now quite keen so I don't have Dawson, and he's dropping in cash, which is awesome. He's definitely someone that I am looking at. So let's go and just try and have a look here. So his break-even's now super high. So Dawson, break-even of 173, which is really good. He's already down to 618, which is extremely pleasing as well. Now, I'm not losing much off him at the moment because 3-round average of 101, 5-round of 106. So he's performing similarly to a lot of other players and not hurting you as much at the moment. So when you have a look at those massive ceiling games we had early on, it's kind of tailored off a little bit. Outside of that one that you had about 5 rounds ago, that 150, so 120, 89, 92, 78. So, he's still got such a big ceiling out of that one. But since those last 5 rounds, there's only been that 150 and the 122, and then a few others that are a bit lower than that. So I'm actually really keen to track his progression. With a high break even now, he should actually drop. So he's got 2 scores now under 100 in a row, which is perfect, an 89, 92. Awesome. I'll be really keen to pick him up at the dip If I can afford it, I think I'll just have to afford it at this point, and look for value elsewhere. So here's one I'm looking at. I'm considering Wines, but I'd probably rather Mills if I can kind of wait it out. Ashcroft with the 124 is awesome because now he's pretty much just restarted his price gen as well, and he'll now be able to hold through the buys. So that's the awesome part about it. Hold him through the buys there now because they have the first buy. I could easily just upgrade him when it's opportune. So I'm really keen to sort of see how he goes at the moment. Plus, again, they also have some softer draws coming. So Adelaide this one, and he could towel up Hawks, right? So once they get through that, then you got Richmond, West Coast, right, both at the Gabba. I expect Neil and a few others to really towel up those games specifically. And that's probably the run I'm looking at there. So Adelaide, Hawks, I think should be good matchups for them. Richmond, West Coast, etc. Should also be a really good matchup. Gold Coast, Neil generally does well. Melbourne should be a really good matchup one as well for him. So I guess we'll just wait and see. But a lot more games at the Gabba. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sort of games here. I'm trying to HBS. Oh, down the Gold Coast, right? So yeah, a few more games at home, which will be nice. So 6 in that run home should be pleasant for him as well. Now the other one is obviously English. English has been sort of chipping away well enough. I lost points to him this week because obviously I'm rocking big old Maxi. I'm waiting for Maxi to go into that forward line and help me here. So English is now 610k with a break even of 144. So another person that I'm hoping will just sort of stagnate. The only issue is that now he's had his low games have been here, so the 88 and the 90. I just need him to have another one. So hopefully Wits will come and peg him down a notch a little bit and make him stagnate still just to try and get me through. Max will get DPP, and then I'll look at try and bring in English and Dawson as probably my 2 main priority targets, and then the rest is value. So Neil I'm looking at because of his 560k, break even of 85, so realistically he's probably going up in price, but it's just about your buy structure at this point. So I could bring him in, but then I was like, well, what's the point? I could just wait until after his buy. So hopefully he doesn't go up too much this week, even if he scores. And if he goes like a 120, what's that? That's 35 over his break even. So he goes up about 17,000. So then he's, what was it, 587 or something or other. So there'll be a little bit more at that point. So it's probably a really good buy now if your structure allows it. Otherwise, you could just wait until picking him up, on the buy round. After the buy round is pretty much the strategy to go for. So that is that scenario for it. Now, as far as so I'm looking at possibly Baldwin. The other one I did look at was if Clary is injured for a month, I was looking at getting rid of him and, say, Baker and bringing in Neil and Ollie Wines is pretty much the 2 that I was considering. The other consideration was, so I could do those 2, is pretty much what I was be looking at. So Oliver out pretty much for Neil, Baker up to Wines, more points on field, and that should sort of help me through that part. Don't like Wines' buy though, because it does tie into a lot of my others, and Neil obviously having that first one there doesn't help me as much either. Now, the other consideration was even just looking at, so Baldwin I don't mind as well. Now trying to, depending on, if Chincotta's still not named and it doesn't look desirable, him and Young are very similarly priced, so one of those might actually go out for it instead. Simpson as well, if he's dropped, then he could be one to go out and free up some cash that way. And I'll be trying to sort of look at doing a double and just trying to get a player in my team with Baldwin. So that was the other consideration. So let's just say, like Chincotta, I could go Oliver still to like Neil or someone like that. And then just trying to bank some cash is pretty much the way that I was looking at going. So otherwise, all depends on Oliver's situation, depending on some others. So let's just say Simpson's named. I'm like, cool, Chincotta's not. So I was like, cool, you're gone. And then it's just a matter of doing a little bit of a flip around here where I've got enough cash there where I'll go, okay, so we'll go in and we'll bring in Neil, just because obviously Brisbane boy, I was just like, I'll take the hit and I could handle it. I think he'll do well against Adelaide. I think the Dogs killed Adelaide in the midfield except for outside of Laird. So I think that'll be an interesting one there. And then going, Baldwin is someone who I'd need to look at a little bit more. So don't quote me on it, But based on his couple of scores so far and the easy draw that they have and the injuries that they currently have at the moment, he's someone that I could actually look to make some cash. So that's the consideration I'm going with. Outside of that, let's have a look at Baldwin. So he scored a 76 against the Lions, and then a 60 against Richmond. And then they play West Coast North coming up next. So a few more, if he has a couple more good games there, that should then get him through that bye sort of period. They also have a better bye, I think, with the 13, 14. So playing 12, 13, 14. Maybe it's not the better bye. So at least that way he should make me some cash, and it should be a little bit better for that point. Does have the better buy on that 14 because obviously 15 is the buy that I don't really want. So that would then help me out a little bit. Carlton should be able to score fairly well against as well, hopefully. And then Fremantle for that bad buy. And then by that point, you probably assume they have a lot of their players back, and you'll probably be able to fob him off there. So that's the scenario. Now, the other thing to note is people looking at bringing people in with teams of injury. So say Essendon, the bye does buy people a week. So we spoke about Clario's ball before, saying, okay, well, hang on. If you're playing rookies and you're covering, then you're probably only losing 50 points a week over those bye periods maybe for him, because you'll probably have cover. So is trading out Oliver for 2 weeks and then he has the bye. So then for 100 points, is it really worth losing Oliver? Because Oliver's probably going to average you 10 points more than Neil. So will he make up those points on the last 10 rounds? It's very much possible. So in the end, it's trying to look at, do I want to get rid of Clary? How long is he out for? How many points am I going to lose? And then trying to work it out from there. So although it would be more than that, it'd be probably 150 points. So look, they're the things to sort of weigh up, but the buy does buy people a week, especially even Essendon players. That now means that they have other people maybe coming back in, which then might change Baldwin's role, change a whole bunch of other things in there as well. So that is the consideration, and that's sort of what I'm looking at to possibly bring him in, mainly because of the injuries and the soft games. So that's what I'm sort of looking at there. The other thing that I can note as well is I can actually have a bit of a nice loophole as well this week. Filippo is trying to make me a little bit more cash, which is pleasant, finally. So the other thing I was looking at doing is, I think loopholing using Sin. So that way Sin can kind of go on field here. I was going to, I think Simpson, and maybe I was going to flip. Actually, no, Roberts was going to flip. That's it. So I can put the emergency on, I think, one of these guys here. So that way, if Simpson plays early as well as someone else. So I think Baker on the, let me just have a look. So round 11, DPP kicks in after this week, which will be awesome. And, okay, so I'm having a look going. So Filippo, I'd love to put the emergency on, but I just don't think it's going to work. So I'm trying to use Sin as my main swing guy. So that way I could, Baker, I could put that one on. I could leave Sin there. I'll pretty much stack it as far as probably switching Simpson into this part just because I don't know if he's going to play anyway. Baker, if he loops, and that's fine, it goes here. Baldwin, if I put the E on as well, could be someone. So if he goes really big, right, then all I do is if he goes big and say Baker doesn't, or whoever goes bigger, then if Baker goes well, it's awesome. Sin, you stay in that line there. If he does, if say Baldwin goes better, then all I do is I switch Sin with say a Cornelio. No, they play earlier, so who would it be? So Rosie. And then I'll just switch those two here. Then I take Baldwin. Rosie just comes up here and plays on field as the exact same way. So that's what I'm sort of looking at this week, is just using Sin. So I'm not going to be able to loophole each one specifically, but what it does mean is that I will be able to take the best score out of the two and trying to look at doing it that way. So, Simpson could be in that mix, except I just think, Baldwin with the softer draw probably has a better chance. And Baker, I think, against Gold Coast on the wing should also do better. We've already seen, Sharp was doing well before he was subbed, but Wilmot and a few others, Berry, McCluggage getting on the wing there against Gold Coast did do quite well. So I think Baker could be in for a good score, and that's what I'm sort of looking at doing at this point. But yeah, that's my team. Let me know what you think. This way I take 200k into the bank so I can then try and upgrade Baker to a premium through the buy periods there and just start trying to maybe develop some cash so I can make some moves during the buy and just taking my time with it. So I don't have heaps of trades left. So what I am looking at doing is obviously cashing Humphrey up there. So at this point, I'll have one spot here, one spot in my midfield. So bring in Neil for this one. So I'll have, well, with Ashcroft, so 1, 2, 3, 4 spots left. One down, one up. That's 8 with 5 correction trades left for the season. Hopefully I don't need them. And yeah, so taking some cash into that would be very beneficial, and then just looking for value, one down, one up. So I should have at least, Baker 300k sort of in that period. Humphrey will get over 300s as well. Mitchell hopefully gets to about 300. So I'll be looking at those main ones on field with your Baker, Simpsons, your Philippos, etc. And hopefully Baldwin to then use that as my catalyst to upgrade those last 4 spots. I think Sin Cotter, etc., or Young, depending on which one, I probably can afford to get rid of one of the cheaper guys this week. Otherwise, I think there's probably not enough meat on the bone for me to kind of get rid of them. And just hope that if I do have an out, that they are someone who might come back in and play a game, and that could be my cover. So it's a little bit risky, but I need to kind of look for where the fat is, and I need to try and use that fat to Botox it somewhere else. Like, that's pretty much my only option. But yeah, that's my team. Let me know what you're thinking as far as seeing and not this week with Oliver out. It's going to be really painful. So I am looking at, I think Bontempelli should just absolutely dominate, and I'm going for probably, they play the same time, so that's going to hurt. Probably Zachy Merritt after his big week last week, I think, against Eagles. It is over in Optus though, so it'll be interesting to see how he travels. Hard to go against Bont though, if you have him. So depends how he goes. He did have a bit of an ankle roll or knee, like he had someone tackle him and pretty much land on him and twist his foot. So hopefully he's all right. That could be a reason to sort of go against him if you don't have him for that part. So, Goulden wouldn't surprise me against Carlton, but otherwise it's literally looking like Collingwood, no one really there. Lions, so at Adelaide Oval, Lions don't really tag, so I don't mind, Laird or Dawson or like a Neil even. They play Lasso, so I don't really like that as much. I don't think Marshall will probably be as good of a matchup there. Gorney's got a pretty good matchup. I mean, as in a tough matchup against the Twin Towers, as we call them. So I think Bont, if he's fit, is a really good option for probably a VC. And then using someone else, if you have a later one like a Sin as your loophole for that, to take the captain option there. Otherwise, I think Dawson's also kind of due, even though I hate to say it. And Lions don't tag, so he should be able to run around and dominate to some capacity. But if the Brisbane team win, then there's probably less scaling, etc. So probably Laird would be the one for me on that one, if he stays fit and holds firm. And the only other one is, I guess, any of the Saints. So Steele, Sinclair. I mean, they just towed up this week, so Hawks should be a pretty simple matchup as well. Let me know what you're thinking. So I'm probably going Bont into Laird, I think is pretty much where I'm going with. Trying to play it fairly safe at this current point in time. I've been taking a lot of 120 captain options. So yeah, it's kind of worked out the last couple of weeks because, Bont's gone a bit lower. English has gone a bit lower. Goulden went a bit lower. So I kind of just 120, I've just taken it, I think, the last couple and been slightly ahead because of it. That is me. And I might dive a little bit deeper for those playing draft for a half a moment. And what I'm going to tell you now is, because DPP is kicking off in the next week, so at the end of the next round, I actually went and made some changes and trades this week in my draft league. So what that meant is I had Parrish already here. I actually traded... So I wanted, so McRae wasn't doing well, but obviously McRae's going from a midfield to a forward possibility. I've already got Walsh, I've already got Gawn looking to get DPP, so I'm very well set up. Now, this draft league is the one I do most times. Chris usually does quite well as well, and my team's been pretty well stacked because I drafted defenders last and I got value. So Walsh I picked up super late because he was injured. Gawn, people ignored him. It was like pick 40 or something. Like, it was horrible how much he was neglected. And I went early on forward. So I went, and like Anderson killing it, by the way. Sarong killing it. Rowell I got for value there. Newcomb I got for value. Clary was pick 1, obviously. And Lloyd I got super cheap as value. No one wanted him. Goulden, Rosie, Cornelio. I also had Darcy Cameron. I had Caleb Daniel. So I traded out Caleb Daniel and so if anyone has, so try and target Walsh, try and target McRae, try and target Gawn, any of these players in your draft leagues. If they don't know they're getting DPP, then hit them up and say, hey, what would you like? So because I had Darcy Cameron on my bench, he was playing, Finlayson was playing for him, and Finlayson's been killing it. So I was like, cool, I'll give you Daniel and Finlayson because I'm about to get 2 DPPs in my forward line anyway. So I don't need these guys in my forward line. So I was like, cool, I'll give you those 2. And I was even offering him Ollie Wines as the third to pretty much go and get McRae. So I was like, I can use bench options, and pretty much it worked out well. He didn't take he didn't take Ollie Wines. So in the end, it was Caleb Daniel, and Finlayson for McRae. So I was like, easy, give me someone you don't want. And that's the biggest sell. Give me someone you don't want. So he gave me like Wingard or someone horrible. And then I was like, oh, cool. Someone dropped Dylan Moore from Hawks on the waiver. I was like, cool. Okay. So now it's McRae and Dylan Moore for Caleb Daniel and Finlayson. I'm like, easy win. I hit up Chris as well because I had Darcy Cameron. So I was like, okay, well, if I can I use Ollie Wines then to my benefit? Because I was like, well, if I can put Walsh or someone in my forward line, would I rather play Darcy Cameron or would I rather play like Luke Davies-Uniacke? So I knew Chris was hurting from injuries, so I went and targeted Luke Davies-Uniacke and said, right, I'll give you Ollie Wines, Darcy Cameron for Luke Davies-Uniacke. So Ollie Wines was on my bench. I was playing Newcomb and stuff instead of him. So for me, it was like, who would I rather, Darcy Cameron or LDU on field? And I'm like, I'll take LDU, mainly because of the high ceiling, injury on one other. So I was like, look, I'll take the upside. It's risky. It definitely is. But then I also then picked up Cam Guthrie for free. So I can't be too upset. Perkins is literally just sitting here until one more round. I'll probably trade him to a forward anyway. Obviously, down here it says Nash. You can probably half see it. So I'll probably have one less in this forward line if I can help it. Might cop a loss, but I'm 3 wins ahead. So, yeah, so that's the idea. One more round, and then I bring some forwards into this mix. Moore can then go to the bench. Walsh and, Gawn in the forward line. Grundy I've handcuffed with anyway in case Gawn goes down. It's perfect. Got him off the waiver. Letting it slip, boys. So bring him into my ruck line, and that's what you should do. You should be targeting people. Speaking of targeting people, the last one I'll finish with is let me know who won this trade. So I have a keeper league with AFL 360 boys, and this is my keeper league here. I'm kind of going short to medium term, so as in I'm not quite there yet. I'm winning games. Obviously, the upside in day costs, etc., is huge. Now, this one, it has to be noted, when we played, I had last pick, and they had a new comp last year. I had last pick, and, teaching some of these boys, how you do keeper leagues and a few other things. And when you have like 8th pick, all the best players, the premiums that are now ready were taken. So I was like, okay, so I went like Brayshaw, I went McCluggage. And then I was like, okay, so then I went and I was just looking for young value. So I went Dacos early, and then I was like, right, so I went young. Traded to get Horn Francis. So that was a good trade as well. I had to give up. I think I gave up a bit though, because I was like, well, my team's pretty young. So I gave up LDU and Callahan for Horn Francis. So that could be one to bite me. And the other thing is that I've gone and didn't do well last year because obviously my list was too young. I then went and got Ashcroft. So, but now the development from like Tom Green's improved, Anderson's improved, Brayshaw obviously hasn't been as great, but Dacos improved like huge. I had traded pretty aggressively, and then so I got Horn Francis, and then this year I just went and traded Sheasel. So I gave up because if you look at this team, it's stacked with youth. So what my plan was, because we can actually trade players for picks, etc. So I was looking at anyone with trade value. Anyone that's young, so like Campbell, Bergman, Jinby, Erasmus, right, Hobbs, any of these players who have potential to have value, I've stacked my team with people that I can probably offload later. So we keep 14. I've got more than 14 here that I would actually like to keep and see through in the next sort of 3 years in a keeper league. So I actually traded out Rochelle, and I traded out my first round pick next year for and Rivers. I was like, cool, take Rivers for Sheasel. Now, the idea is I don't need a first round pick specifically for next season because I've already got a really strong 14. So I'm okay with that side of it. And then for me, it was like, who would I rather in the long run? So in 5 years' time, would I rather Rochelle or would I rather Sheasel? And I heavily rate Sheasel. I know he's not going to be a defender all his life or anything like that, but he also had some of the highest AFL player rating games and I think Supercoach scores since Rockcliffe. So I'm talking there's something really dangerous about him, and I think he's an absolute baller. I think he's born to play. Now, I really like Rochelle as well, but when it comes down to the two of them, I was like, I'll take Sheasel. So Chris and Swizz, I think I'm stupid and that the other guy got the better deal. Let me know what you think, if that was probably the better deal there. And if you are playing a keeper league where you are allowed to trade, if you're in that bottom window, load up on players that people might like. Don't go with... So I'm now in this position where I'm kind of fourth. Dacos, because of the improvements. So now I've gone and got like a Powell and Witherden. And I've gone for a few of these older guys just to kind of play them on field to try and get some more points and try and win a few more games that way. So that's the current situation that I'm in. But otherwise, like Campbell, Jinby, and you can hold them all preseason. Depending on what structure you have, like we trade through the off season and then we draft fairly late after, like during preseason. So I can sit on these guys all preseason. You can watch them in like a JLT or community game or whatever, and then some of their value will absolutely go bonkers. So I will need to trade some people out, and then you go, hey, like they're actually training really well, training the house down or whatever. And then you have to decide if you want them or if you want to offload them. And then that way you can actually improve your draft position to then get better players. So that's the strategy that I currently have. A little bit of a side note for 6 minutes on Keeper League and some of my draftees. As you can see, I've got a few here. So Dr. Supercoach Division 1. This is the Keeper League. It's called, so with Swizz and Chris, 10 of us here. It's called Why Did I Rebuild? I won last year. I was like, Swizz and Matt Grimstone, who we talk about heaps, he was coming right up the clacker with a killer team. And I don't know if you've ever been in the situation where you've won, but then the people just behind you, you're like, they are about to dominate and I will not win again. So I thought, what a good opportunity. I traded Lockie Neal for pick 1. And with that, I got Ashcroft. So I was like, that is the start of my rebuild. And I pretty much went heavily, like trade like crazy. I traded out so much and some of it backfired. So I was like, right, let's just do a full rebuild. I need a full rebuild of team. I traded out Bontempelli. I traded out, so that one hurt me in a sense, like as in I was like, oh, I still love Bontempelli, but I was like, right, so I'm just going full rebuild. I had all these high picks because of it. I traded out 5 for pick 8, which seems like an absolute rolling now. But at the time I was like, yeah, 5 will be a forward, man. Like it's, I sold him a lemon. So with that, I was able to get, like Sheasel. I traded, I think, pick 8 back out for Rochelle. And I think Swizz then got Jinby because of it. So I got Callahan, and then so Anderson. So I've just, again, tried to load up with a whole bunch of young guys just to kind of sit and watch. Now, also loading up a whole bunch of young guys. Some of them aren't even playing, mainly because I just want to sort of watch for that 12-month period, see if there's any development. But also it kind of stops me from winning too many games because obviously I would like a low pick in that rebuild. So the other thing I'll mention is that we are looking at to maybe avoid tanking because, I'm the type of person who probably would tank to get number 1 pick. Like, not openly tank, but I will put and pick players that are good and are not great or are sub or not playing as my development. So it's, so trying to have maybe do a lotto. So let me know if you are someone who runs a lotto as far as your first round pick and a keeper, or let me know if anything like that. So that is my current team, as you can see, loaded up with a whole bunch of possibilities. I did get Filippo, I think, fairly early in that one as well with Sheasel and Ashcroft. And I think there was also, I got Sheasel, Filippo, Ashcroft. So I had 3 of the top 4. I had 1, 3, 4, 5. So I'm trying to think who I might have got with that 5th one then. I did trade and get Horn Francis as well in that offseason, so that worked out pretty well. Oh, Tazias as well. He was the 5th one. So I'm not sure about him. But anyway, that's it. That's my team. A little bit more insight than you normally get. Because it's a Sunday, I thought I'll just dive a bit deeper into some of my other teams and some of the other things that's going on. The YouTubers as well. So you got the Draft Expert and a few others kicking on in these ones. But that's me. That's my team. That's my story. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you're doing for this week on your trades as well. Please do shout out, like, comment, because we actually love your interaction. And that's us. Sunday night into Monday, into the week going, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.